Infrastructure Canada and CMHC will collaborate on a design of the new measures. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Mission-Matsky Fraser Canyon will have 2 minutes to complete his remarks when the House next undertakes this subject. Statements by members. Déclaration de député, l'honoraire.
The Honourable Member for Repentigny. The conclusions of the report on missing and murdered Indigenous women are devastating. But first, we need to acknowledge the courage of the women and the families who broke their silence and spoke out. No one should be surprised by the report's conclusions. We need to provide basic services and protect fundamental human rights. These are more or less the same conclusions drawn by the Erasmus Dussault Commission a quarter century ago, the same conclusions as the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and the solutions are similar too. Recent events in Val d'Or, the kidnappings of Indigenous children, and revelations of sexual abuse, notably in the North Shore, have served as a wake-up call in Quebec. The thousands of missing and murdered Indigenous women should serve as a wake-up call across Canada. We need to take real steps to change our nation-to-nation relationship. And finally, end violence and discrimination. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Surrey Newton.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Mr. Speaker. Today, Muslims around the world are celebrating Eid al-Fitr to mark the end of Ramadan. This is a time to celebrate the teachings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his message of harmony, peace, and love, while also understanding the importance of giving to others. Over the past month, it has been an honor to join my Muslim brothers and sisters at iftars. I'm thankful for the meaningful relations I have been able to form with the Muslim community over my many years of public service. To all those celebrating in Surrey Newton and throughout Canada, I want to wish you and your loved ones Eid Mubarak.
Eid Mubarak. The Honourable Member for Bruce Grey, Owen Sound.
Mr. Speaker, today I pay tribute to two amazing people from my riding, Sergeant Darrell Menifee and Sergeant Darren Reed. On Saturday, I presented Darrell with the Minister of Veterans Affairs commendation for his ongoing work for other veterans. He is currently Legion President as well. I also presented Sergeant Darren Reed with the Legionnaire of the Year Award for his local and national work in support of all veterans. Darrell and Darren are both Afghanistan veterans, members of the Grey and Simcoe Foresters, and both actively involved with Flesherton Legion Branch 333. Mr. Speaker, both of these men have served their country with honor and distinction. And Mr. Speaker, I'm honored to ask you and every other member in this House to please join me in thanking them for their tireless work in support of veterans everywhere.
The Honourable Member for Hamilton East, Stony Creek.
Mr. Speaker, 77 years ago, a family from Saskatchewan arrived in Hamilton with their young son looking for work. Last week, that boy, Charles Juravinsky, and his wife of 63 years, Margaret, astounded us with an endowment to support research at Hamilton's hospitals and universities. One of the largest legacy gifts in Canadian history, $100 million. Wow. This is on top of the $50 million they've already donated to healthcare and will create an annual perpetual research grant of up to $5 million. At age 90, Charles, along with Margaret, is getting their affairs in order, but thankfully for their friends, they have no thoughts of leaving our social and cultural scene anytime soon. And Charles will never forget the lessons he learned growing up in a Ukrainian family in Saskatchewan during the Depression. Charles and Margaret, you're bequeathing us good health. And so we say to you, na zdrowie and 100 lat.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, last week we sadly lost a truly remarkable Canadian. Dr. Margaret Ann Armour persevered to excel in chemistry, a traditionally male-dominated field. She was recognized globally for her critical research and teaching in hazardous chemical waste handling and disposal. Later in her career at the University of Alberta, she was appointed Associate Dean of Science for Diversity, channeling her unstoppable energy to advocate for women pursuing STEM careers. She co-created Women in Scholarship, Engineering, Science and Technology, or WISEST, and the Winsett Center. Among my favorite events were the annual presentations by high school students during WISEST summer internships. Among her many accolades, she was awarded a Governor General's Award in commemoration of the Persons Case, the Canada 150 Ambassadorship, and multiple honorary degrees. But perhaps the most fitting for this scholar, who lived her life by doing science as if people matter, was the naming of an elementary school after her. Her effervescence and warm hugs will long be remembered by the many women in STEM careers.
Honourable Member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to rise to pay tribute to Waterloo's Chevalier de Colomb, an organization celebrating its 100th anniversary this year. They do important work with vulnerable people and provide essential support to youth and to various charity organizations. For 100 years, they've made charity work part of their daily lives. They organize a multitude of activities in Waterloo, and I can say that they are a pillar of the community, and we wouldn't know what to do without them. The members of the Chevalier de Colomb have profoundly marked our community. They've made a difference in thousands of people's lives, and they've helped make our society a better place. On behalf of all the citizens of Shefford, allow me to express our thanks for their committed and devoted work. Congratulations and happy 100th anniversary.
Honourable Member for Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, last evening my constituent received devastating news when Canfor announced the closure of its mill in Vavenby. 178 people will lose their jobs. The Canfor mill has been the major employee of Vavenby in the area, and it's tragic news for this community. Unfortunately, this is not an isolated situation. In BC, companies have been cutting back shifts and closing mills as a lack of log supplies and low prices endure. More closures are expected to come. In fact, the province will likely lose 12 mills in the next decade, according to a report commissioned by the Force Economic Advisors Canada. It's past time for this government to take some action. We need to have the Trans Mountain Pipeline approved. We need the U.S. softwood lumber tariffs lifted. We need broadband investments, and we need Western diversification to support these small towns that must diversify or die. Time is of the essence. Rural Canadians deserve better.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member for Brampton West.
Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Speaker. For the billions of Muslims across the world, the past month has been one of reflection, perseverance, and gratitude. To mark the end of Ramadan, our Muslim brothers and sisters will celebrate Eid al-Fitr. After a month of fasting and spiritual reflection, it's a time for celebration and to honor the values of Islam. I was proud to have the opportunity to host an iftar dinner in my community of Brampton West at the Brampton Islamic Center and connect with our Muslim brothers and sisters during the holy month. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the mosque in my riding, Brampton Islamic Center, Masjid Al-Salam, North Valley Islamic Center, Yassim Masalla, and Masjid Mubarak for all that you do in our community and for sharing the values of kindness, peace, unity, and generosity, the same values that we're proud to share as Canadians. So to all those celebrating in Brampton West, across Canada, and around the world, Eid Mubarak.
Honourable Member for Mission, Matsqui, Fraser Canyon.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to recognize one person working to make a difference in my riding, Daphne Doss from HoC First Nation. Daphne is preparing for her second Great Cycle Challenge cancer fundraising ride. Last year, she traveled 250 kilometers and raised $1,300. Daphne is truly an inspiration. She rides to honor the loss of her two family members and to raise cancer awareness for those in her community and surrounding areas. I would like to thank Daphne for her outstanding community service as she continues to motivate others and make a difference. Keep up the great work, Daphne. We're all behind you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That's for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised that he would bring in some kind of golden age for our immigration system. But 4 years later, it's clear that the reality is completely different. Illegal immigration has ballooned, and those who want to come the right way are very frustrated by the ease with which people are jumping the line. If you live in China or India or the Philippines, you can't just walk across the border into Canada. And people languishing in refugee camps around the world know that it is wrong that they do not have the same opportunity to access the refugee system as people living in upstate New York. The family reunification system is deeply broken, and no action has been taken to improve credential recognition. Meanwhile, organizations seeking to help privately sponsor refugees, Hindus and Sikhs from Afghanistan, Ahmadis and Christians stuck in Thailand, gays and lesbians escaping Iran, Rohingya, Yazidis, and many others, organizations wanting to help the world's most vulnerable on their own initiative and with their own money experience roadblock after roadblock. So much for helping refugees, Mr. Speaker. This government is getting in the way of Canadians who want to help the most vulnerable. On immigration and refugees, this Prime Minister is clearly not as active.
The Honourable Member for Châteauguay-Lacolle. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to rise today to highlight some of our accomplishments while in office. First, the dangerous abandoned vessel, the Catherine Spirit, was safely dismantled by our government. Businesses, organizations, and municipalities in my riding received nearly $8 million, in addition to the regional contributions and the doubling of the gas tax fund for municipal infrastructure. Our Canada Child benefit meant $6 million more tax-free dollars in the pockets of 11,000 families in my riding. We organized some 30 roundtables and consultations with various stakeholders and created a youth council, which is now studying the issue of climate change. Finally, I sponsored a bill to change the name of our riding to the more accurate Châteauguay-Les Jardins de Napierville. Much has been accomplished, but there's still much work to do. The Honourable Member for Montarville. Mr. Speaker, I want to take a few minutes to talk about Marguerite Charlebois, an exceptional woman. With contagious optimism and joie de vivre, she has served the House of Commons. She started in January 1981 when Pierre Elliott Trudeau was Prime Minister. Marguerite worked for 15 years as a server in the parliamentary restaurant. She then became the hostess, a job that she has performed with panache for 23 years now. As she approaches the age of 79, she's now planning to retire for the third time. Dear Marguerite, on behalf of myself and all of my colleagues, thank you for your 38 years of service to this House. We wish you happiness and good health for your well-deserved retirement. Marguerite, we love you.
Member for Caribou, Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, British Columbia is the largest producer of softwood in North America. Forestry is a cornerstone industry in our provincial economy. It generates $33 billion in output and $13 billion in GDP. BC leads the world in forestry sustainable practices. Over 140,000 jobs, Mr. Speaker, are directly attributed to forestry in British Columbia, and over 140 communities in our province are forestry dependent. $8.6 billion in wages are generated by the forestry industry. Yet last week in the Senate, the Liberal leader said that the minister missed a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to renegotiate the NAFTA agreement with softwood in it and put an end to the softwood lumber dispute once and for all, because he had other priorities. It wasn't his priorities. Mr. Speaker, mill closures and work curtailment notices are being seen across our province, yet the hardworking forestry families aren't this Prime Minister's priority.
Shameful. The Honourable Member for Cloverdale, Langley City.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to speak to the residents of Cloverdale-Langley City. I humbly offer my thanks and gratitude for the honor of serving them in the 42nd Parliament. I've had some great jobs in my life, but this is by far the best. I heard their issues on the doorsteps, and that's why I'm so proud to be part of this government who responded. In our first month in office, we cut taxes for the middle class, saving each $720 every year. We introduced the Canada Child Benefit that brings $84 million tax-free dollars annually to Cloverdale-Langley City. We invested $1.3 billion in transit south of the Fraser, including $650,000 for the next phase of SkyTrain expansion down Fraser Highway toward Clayton and Langley City, and expanded bus services throughout our neighborhoods. We invested more than $10 million in our growing communities in Cloverdale-Langley City. Upgrades happened at Cloverdale Athletic Park, Penzer Park, and the Museum of Surrey. With their support, Mr. Speaker, I will continue this work I started this term in the 43rd Parliament.
The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. My riding of Hochelaga is full of talented people, but because it's often men who get recognized, today I'd like to pay tribute to the women of Hochelaga. Victoire Dussault, Quebec's first female shoemaker in 1890. Her shoe factory led to the Duchesne family fortune. Mary Travers, La Bolduc, a popular singer from the 1930s, who raised her family in Rue Le Tourneau. She was the first female performing artist who was able to make a living from her art. Diane Dufresne, an international rock star. Louise Arel, Member of Parliament, Minister, Municipal and Provincial Party Leader, and all of the other lesser-known women who founded and supported our many community organizations. Janelle Bouffard, Jacinthe Ouellette, Manon Bonin, Anne Saint-Pierre, Monique Blanchet, Joanne Cooper, Nicole Forger-Bachonga, Manon Bouchard, Edith Cyr, Jeanne Doré, Jacinthe Larouche, and so many other incredible women in Hochelaga Maisonneuve that I didn't have the time to name in 1 minute.
The honourable member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
Protecting Canada's environment is something that is important to so many Canadians. And we need to look at this Liberal government's record. They've put in place a carbon tax that only affects 8% of major emitters. They've dumped millions of liters of raw sewage into the St. Lawrence River.
Shameful.
They've essentially put in place reverse tariffs on Canadian manufacturers while allowing other major emitter countries to import goods like steel into our country. We're buying environmental goods we're punishing our own manufacturers because of the carbon tax. This is not how we're going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in Canada. A carbon tax does not work. And a conservative environmental plan will never put in place a cash grab instead of policy that actually reduce greenhouse gas emissions. When it comes to the environment, the Liberal leader is not as advertised.
The Honourable Member for Madawaska-Restigouche. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives would like to form government, but Canadians haven't forgotten their record from last time.
Highlights. The previous Liberal government left them a $13 billion surplus, and the Conservatives turned it into the worst accumulation of debt in Canadian history, almost $150 billion in 10 years. Pipelines, nothing to highlight. Environment, they did nothing on climate change, but they muzzled scientists.
Social programs, they closed veteran services offices, eliminated the court challenges program, cut funding to women's rights organizations, neglected our seniors, and showed disrespect for our First Nations. For 4 years, our government has supported the middle class, cut taxes for small businesses, created 1 million jobs, and unemployment is at its lowest rate in 40 years, Mr. Speaker. We have a plan for climate change. Mr. Speaker, under the Liberals, we've seen a decline in poverty among children and seniors, but under the Conservatives, all of Canada will be in decline.
Questions orales.
Oral question.
Order. Questions orales, oral questions. The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Middle-class
gas taxes are up $800 per family under this government, and it's starting to hurt. MNP, the accounting firm, reports that almost half of Canadians are less than $200 away from insolvency every month. That's right. And in April, over 11,000 Canadians did go insolvent, a 9% annual increase over the previous year. Wow. When will this government realize that Canadians are taxed to the max and can't afford to pay any more?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
This government realized back in fall of 2015 that we need to lower taxes on middle-class Canadians. So when people say things, it doesn't make them true. The fact of the matter is 9 million middle-class Canadians have lower taxes because we lowered the tax bracket between $45,000 and $90,000 by 7%. Mr. Speaker, we added on the Canada Child Benefit, making sure that 9 out of 10 families are better off. So the facts are clear. 2019, typical family, $2,000 better off than 2015 under the previous government.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Well, this minister doesn't think anybody who takes the bus is middle class, so he raised their taxes by taking away their transit tax. He doesn't think that soccer moms and hockey dads are middle class, so he took away their children's fitness tax credit. He doesn't think students are middle class, so he took away the education and textbook tax credits. That doesn't even include the carbon and payroll tax increases. But what's worse is what's to come. This government is spending at an unsustainable rate, requiring higher taxes if they're re-elected. Why won't they tell the truth about the higher costs that Canadians will pay when the Liberals no longer need their votes but still need their money?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Is we were able to manage to lower taxes on Canadians even with the $150 billion of additional debt left to us by the previous government. And what we've said is what we need to continue to do is to ensure that Canadians are successful. So we took away boutique tax credit, yes, because we wanted to make sure that the broad cross-section of Canadians were better off. That's what the Canada Child Benefit did. That is what the lowering of middle-class taxes did. The Liberal approach is helping Canadians, not just the friends of Conservatives.
Honourable Member for Carleton.
People who take the bus, people who put their kids in sports, students who go to university and college, I'm happy to call those people Conservative friends. But they have no friends on that side of the House because these Liberals will continue to raise taxes on middle-class Canadians, another $23 billion spending increase and a promise-breaking deficit to go along with it. Why don't they just admit that after the election, if God forbid they're back, there will be massive tax increases to pay for all of this out-of-control spending?
Minister of Finance.
Continued focus on how Canadians are doing because we want to reiterate that the typical family of four with 2 children is $2,000 better off this year than they were back in 2015. So we will continue our approach to making sure that we help middle-class Canadians, and we will continue to focus on how we can ensure that the economy does well. Our investments have made a really big difference for Canada. We're going to continue to invest in Canadians.
Order à l'ordre.
Order.
L'honorable.
The honourable member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance must remember 4 years ago when he decided to offer services to Canadians, and he committed to run 3 small deficits and then to balance the books in 2019, 4 years later. And this is the reality. There have been 3 big deficits, a deficit of almost $20 billion in 2019. His credibility in terms of public finances has hit rock bottom, and he says one thing and does another. A deficit today are tomorrow's taxes. The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, we made a promise to invest in the future of Canadians. And fortunately, our investments are paying off for our economy. We are a position with the lowest unemployment in 40 years, 2 million new jobs over 4 years, a wonderful situation for our economy and for Canadians. We're going to continue our approach of investing in the future with optimism. The member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, What's unfortunate with the Minister of Finance is that when he was on Bay Street, a private fund manager, he was very responsible with private funds. Never in his career did he sign off on one deficit budget. But since he's managing Canadians' money, he's run up deficit after deficit. 4 out of 4 deficits have been budgets have been deficit. A home run in bad management. Can the minister recognize that he did not respect his commitment of balancing the books in 2019? And that his deficit is a tax for future generations? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, in the private sector and public sector, it's important to have confidence in the future and confidence in our country. And so we've made investment in our future. And this is a good thing because we're now in a better position than in the past. We have the lowest unemployment in 40 years, and it's clear we started with a 7.2 rate with the Conservatives, and now it's 5.8%. A big difference for Canadians and Canada.
For Burnaby South.
Thank you. 65 years ago, individuals and big corporations paid the same amount of income tax. However, since the tables have turned in favor of big corporations, taxes for corporations were cut, and individuals have been forced to make up the difference. But the Liberals and the Conservatives are refusing to change things and put people ahead of corporations. We have the courage to do things differently. Can the Liberals commit to changing things and helping people and making sure rich corporations pay their fair share? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, we started with a change in our approach. We reduced taxes for the middle class, a 7% cut in the $45,000 to $90,000 bracket, and we added another bracket for wealthier Canadians. So that's good news for our country. It's very good for the middle class, and our economy is doing well. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Individuals and corporations pay the same amount of tax. Now, corporations pay only a third. Conservatives and Liberals have slashed corporate tax rates and failed to crack down on offshore tax havens. Now, who does this benefit? Not everyday families. They don't use offshore tax havens, but the Westons, Irvings, and the richest families in Canada sure do. While the Liberals and Conservatives help the richest save billions, they have failed to invest in housing and healthcare and farmer care. Doesn't this government agree that the rich should pay their fair share?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Speaker, not really sure where to start, but perhaps we could start with the fact that, yes, we have a corporate tax rate that's competitive with the United States, but at the same time, what we've been able to do is to ensure our system works for all Canadians. We've lowered taxes for middle-class Canadians. We raised taxes on the top 1%. We went after ensuring that we have an approach to dealing with offshore taxation that can actually work by putting in place rules to ensure that we can see through people's holdings in other countries. We've made important movements on all these fronts, ensuring that our tax system works while our economy can work for investing in the future.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
We need to put the richest ahead of everyday people. They let KPMG off the hook for tax avoidance. They helped Sears finance Sears over the workers at Sears. They let drug companies protect their profits instead of helping Canadians who can't afford the cost of medication. Now Canada ranks 25th out of 37 countries on services for people. Liberals must stop helping their wealthy friends and start investing in people. Why are the Liberals refusing to ensure that the rich pay their fair share?
Hear, hear. Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, we have been investing in Canadians. As you see through the Canada Child Benefit, 300,000 kids have been lifted out of poverty. As you've seen when it comes to the economy, through the leadership of the Minister of Finance, we have one of the fastest growth rates amongst the G7 countries. And when it comes to the economy, there's over 1 million jobs that have been created since 2015. And what's really important to note is that 75% of those jobs are full-time jobs. And when it comes to Canadians, their wages have gone up. We'll continue to invest in the middle class, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
People have been clear. They're having a hard time making ends meet, and they're disappointed in the Liberal government. They cannot go back to the old Conservative ways. We must stop spending to help out rich corporations. People need universal pharmacare and access to affordable housing. We must make better choices to achieve better results. When will the Liberals put people over their executive cronies and rich corporations? The Honourable Minister of Finance, Social Development, rather. Thank you. I'd like to thank my colleague for giving me the opportunity to talk about the impact of investing in the middle class. 1 million new jobs, the lowest unemployment rate, and one of the strongest growth rates in developed countries. And soon we will see the lowest rates of poverty in 40 years and the history of our country. Excellent news that shows how important it is to invest in the middle class for everyone and for our economy.
Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, Manitoba Hydro is planning to build a transmission line to the U.S. to export clean, green energy. Unlike the useless Liberal carbon tax, the Manitoba-Minnesota transmission project would actually help the environment by increasing the amount of green energy. 5 years of consultations have been done, and this project has been approved by the National Energy Board and Manitoba's Clean Energy Commission. Why is the Prime Minister blocking this project and not allowing it to get started?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Speaker, Canadians understand that for good projects such as this to move ahead and grow our economy, we must protect our environment and respect the rights of Indigenous peoples. Mr. Speaker, we are working hard to ensure that we are discharging our duty to consult with Indigenous communities. There are outstanding issues between the proponent and the Indigenous communities, so we extended the timeline to give them time to resolve those issues, and we hope they'll be able to resolve those issues. Thank you, Mr.
Honourable Opposition House Leader.
That's a complete fabrication, Mr. Speaker. Manitoba Hydro Line, this line was approved by 2 independent regulatory agencies, and all outstanding issues have been addressed. This project would reduce emissions by providing clean electricity to areas of the U.S. which currently burn coal. But the Prime Minister is blocking this green project and costing Manitobans hundreds of millions of dollars and Canadian jobs.
That's right.
The Prime Minister is politically interfering and trying to kill yet another Canadian energy project. Why?
I encourage Honourable Opposition House Leader to be judicious in your choice of words. Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, we will not follow a failed process of Harper era that led to large energy infrastructure projects challenged in the courts because they failed to put in place a meaningful consultation that allows us to fully discharge our duty to consult with Indigenous communities. We know that good projects such as this can only move forward when we know that we look after the environment, that we are meaningfully engaging with Indigenous communities. We encourage the proponent to continue their conversation with Indigenous communities.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, shared provincial federal jurisdiction has been around since 1867. It is the Prime Minister's responsibility to maintain a healthy and productive relationship between the federal and provincial governments. But now we've seen a Prime Minister that has been paternalistic and centralizing. When will the Prime Minister respect our democratically elected premiers in all Canadian provinces? The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, respecting jurisdiction is investing with provinces. Yesterday, for the Louis-Polyte-Lafontaine Tunnel, we worked with the Quebec government to announce a historic investment of more than $500 million to modernize infrastructure to bring it into the 21st century. That's what working with the provinces is. We make announcements together, we invest together, and we're working for Quebecers together and all Canadians. The Honourable Member for Richmond Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, the reality is that in most cases this Liberal government is interfering and is centralizing its decisions without respecting provincial jurisdiction. They're not respecting Ontario, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, New Brunswick, or Quebec, just to name a few. And it's going so poorly with the provinces that the PM said at the CMF Congress on Friday that he was ready to bypass the provinces to achieve his ends. Why is this Liberal government so not respecting our valuable provincial partners and premiers? The Honourable Minister of Transportation. Order, please. Respecting jurisdictions is working with the provinces, and that is why I was very happy to be in Halifax on Sunday and to work with Nova Scotia to announce two new projects for transportation corridors. That's what working with the provinces is, to improve the situation in Canada. Thank you.
Member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, this spring construction season has started, but no shovels are in the ground for the Trans Mountain expansion. In 2016, the Liberals delayed their approval by 4 months, then failed to exert federal jurisdiction while they actually funded opponents to use every tool to stop it. Last year, the Liberals' consultation mistakes delayed construction another 6 months. In April, they delayed their second approval by a month. Now Liberal MPs on the Natural Resources Committee question if a decision will even happen on June 18th. What exactly is the plan for construction to start immediately on June 19th?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Speaker, I would encourage the honourable member and the member of the official opposition to actually listen to the leader or the premier of Alberta, who believes that the process we have put in place is the right process. Maybe they should talk to the energy minister of Alberta that she believes the process we have put is the right place. If they really believe in this process, they should not have voted to defund and kill a process that will allow us to reach a decision, get to decision on this project by June 18th.
Honourable member for Lakeland.
This minister has totally and utterly failed his constituents, and under these Liberals, 3 companies that wanted to build pipelines in Canada are gone, and they're building them in the U.S. And not an inch of new pipeline is in service in Canada, but the U.S. added 35,000 kilometers of new pipelines since TMX was proposed. These Liberals must give a timeline for construction, transparency on cost, and a plan to use all federal powers to get the Trans Mountain expansion built. Missing this construction season will cost taxpayers billions more. So what is the plan to guarantee construction will start on June 19th?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we are moving forward on building pipelines. We are the government that gave approval to Enbridge Line 3, which is almost completely done on the Canadian side. We are the government that gave approval to Nova Gas Line, which is completely done here. We are the government that have been advocating for a Keystone XL pipeline. We put in a process to move forward on the Trans Mountain pipeline expansion in the right way to ensure that we are engaging with Indigenous communities in a meaningful way, the process that conservatives try to kill.
That's right.
Honourable member for Vancouver East.
Their truths. Sophie Moracity, who lost her sister Rose, said, "We have always known this was genocide. The violence we face happens in all aspects of our lives, at every level, in every institution, in every interaction. On behalf of all Canadians, will the Prime Minister honor this truth and state clearly that Canada committed genocide against Indigenous women, girls, and 2S LGBTQIA people, and will he commit to implement all recommendations from the inquiry with dedicated resources and a timeline that is accountable to the public?"
Honourable Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations.
The inquiry presented their final report, in which they found that the tragic violence that Indigenous women and girls have experienced amounts to genocide. And as the Prime Minister has said, we accept these findings. Our job now is to develop a national action plan, as called for by the inquiry, to implement its recommendations that is distinctions-based and flexible. The final report makes it clear that action now is required not just from governments and institutions, but from all Canadians.
Hear, hear. Honourable member for Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls released 231 calls for justice to protect Indigenous women and children. The calls include providing sufficient and readily available transit between cities and rural and northern communities. 18 times I've asked this Liberal government to provide safe and affordable transportation in Saskatchewan following the closure of STC and Greyhound service cuts. Will the Liberals act now to ensure Indigenous women and girls have access to safe transportation options?
The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, this is precisely the reason why, after Greyhound pulled out, that we decided as a government to work with the provinces that wanted to fill the void left by Greyhound and not filled by other transportation companies, that we would be there at the table with them. And I'm glad to say that in the case of the Government of British Columbia, we will be co-financing the transportation costs associated with some northern routes, including the Highway of Tears.
The honourable member for Levis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government is undermining the Auditor General's office. Canadians count on the integrity of our government institutions to show transparency. Mr. Speaker, as we all know, the Liberals reward their cronies to obtain favours from them or to silence them. Why is this government so willing to hamper the work of the Auditor General instead of allowing him to fulfill his mandate of ensuring accountability? The Honourable President of the Treasury Board, order. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy that the Conservatives are finally interested in our agents of Parliament. After all, they cut their budget of the OEG's office by more than $6 million. We are the ones who increased the budget by $41 million for the Office of the Auditor General. The Conservatives voted against that increase. Why so?
Member for Battleford's Lloydminster.
Mr. Speaker, it's very unfortunate that this government has been governing for 4 years and they take no responsibility or accountability for anything that they have done. This is the first time in Canadian history that the Auditor General has said that he has not been given the resources to fully audit the Liberal government. Wow. His request for new funds was rejected and now audits have been dropped. Right. How is it that this Liberal government can always find money for their friends, but when it comes to holding them to account, the cupboards are bare? Right.
Good question. The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member for giving us the opportunity to remind this House of the record of cuts, muzzling, and obstruction of the previous government. This is just another officer of Parliament the Conservatives don't respect. Right. They have told the PBO that they will not allow him to audit their platform. That's probably because they know that their climate non-plan will cost more than ours, just as Doug Ford in Ontario. So, and where was this member when her party was slashing and burning the AG's budget? And
order. The Honourable Member for Chilliwack Hope.
Well, this is a Liberal government that uses its power to punish its enemies and reward its friends. If you're SNC-Lavalin, the Prime Minister fights to get you out of those troublesome court cases. Yep. If you're a decorated Vice Admiral, you get a Prime Minister promising that you'll be in court before an investigation's even complete. If you're a Cabinet Minister that speaks truth to power, you're fired and kicked out of the Liberal Party. If you're an anti-conservative group like Unifor, you get to decide how to hand out $600 million to the media in an election year. When will these Liberals stop trying to stack the deck in their own favor?
Yes. The Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Let's take a walk down history lane here and look at what the Conservatives have done. There is only one party in Canada's history that has been found several times to have broken elections law. Robocalls, Mr. Speaker, the in and out scandal, Mr. Speaker, actually having a member of Parliament go to jail, Mr. Speaker, for spending over the limit. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, Mr. Speaker. Let's not talk about the so-called Fair Elections Act that they put in place to make it harder for Canadians to vote, Mr. Speaker. We will take no lessons from the party opposite.
Order. The honourable member for Chilliwack Hope.
The Liberal government had no problem putting their fingers on the scales of justice in the Mark Norman case. They didn't hesitate to try to interfere in the criminal prosecution of SNC-Lavalin. They see nothing wrong with allowing foreign funding to continue to pour into special interest groups in Canada. They're unapologetic for putting an anti-conservative group like Unifor on a panel that will decide how to hand out $600 million to the media who will cover the upcoming election. Why are these Liberals so desperate to use the power of government to punish their enemies and reward their friends?
The Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, it appears my colleague opposite didn't hear the answer last time, so if he doesn't mind, I'll repeat it, because there's only one party, Mr. Speaker, in this House that has been found to have broken elections law on numerous occasions, Mr. Speaker. Let's go back. Let's remember robocalls. Let's remember in and out. Let's remember that there was one of their members of Parliament, in fact, who was found to have overspent and actually went to jail, Mr. Speaker. When it comes to this side of the House, we made it easier for Canadians to vote. We gave the Commissioner of Canada Elections more powers to enforce our law, and we ensured that we are protecting our elections from foreign cyber threats.
Order. Order. I know it will shock members to hear that they will hear things in this House they won't like sometimes, but we still have to allow each other the opportunity to speak despite that. Order. Order. The honourable member for Desnethi, Mississippi, Churchill River.
Mr. Speaker, the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls Inquiry has called for serious action to help the families of women who have gone missing. Families across northern Saskatchewan expect action from this Liberal government after the genocide of Indigenous women. The families of Happy Charles and Myrna Mongrant need mental health supports and funding to help find their loved ones. Will the Liberals commit today to provide all the necessary resources toward missing and murdered women in northern Saskatchewan?
Honourable Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and our government is committed to ending this national tragedy. We know that the actions and policies of past governments directly led to the loss and extinguishment of Indigenous languages, culture, traditional practices. We are thanking the Commission for their report and carefully reviewing all the recommendations. Our job is now to work with the survivors, the families, and our partners to develop a national action plan to implement those calls for justice. We must work together to end the ongoing tragedy, and Canadians should expect no less, including the people in northern Saskatchewan.
The honourable member for Churchill, Kiewit-Nokaski.
Mr. Speaker, last week the Minister of Indigenous Services went to Grassy Narrows to sign an agreement based on a 2-year-old promise to a community that's been ravaged by mercury poisoning. But he returned empty-handed. Today in committee, adding insult to injury, the minister blamed the chief, saying that the chief just, quote, changed his mind. Let's be clear, Grassy Narrows is calling for what they were promised, including a mercury care home and treatment center. Mr. Speaker, Grassy Narrows deserves justice, not gaslighting. So when will this Liberal government quit the blame game and keep their promise to the people of Grassy Narrows?
The Honourable Minister of Indigenous Services.
Speaker, and I was in Grassy Narrows because building a health facility there is a priority for us. And the hope was to sign an agreement to move forward in addressing the needs of the community, and it's part of a process of consensus building and negotiation in the best interests of the outcomes for that community and looking after those who are no longer in community but need attention and care. These conversations are ongoing, and we will continue working with Chief Turtle and his council until we agree on a solution that meets the health needs of Grassy Narrows, not only now, but in the long term, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Long Range Mountains.
Mr. Speaker, our government has been working hard to advance gender equality, and our plan is working. 1 million jobs have been created, and there are now more women working than ever before. Women's organizations are at the forefront of gender equality, yet they often remain underfunded, undermined, despite the vital role that they play. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister for Women and Gender Equality please tell this House how our government will change the way government funds women's organizations to make them more sustainable and stable for the future? Thank you.
Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, once again, very good news for gender equality and the sustainability of the women's movement. The new partnerships with the Community Foundations of Canada, the Canadian Women's Foundation, and Grand Challenges Canada will bring funding to women's organizations to a level never reached before. Women's groups know firsthand how a decade of being underfunded and undermined by a government can roll back equality rights, but we are standing with them, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the Honourable Member for Long Range Mountains for her question and for her great advocacy.
The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, Canada has always had excellent relations with Mexico, but Liberal mismanagement at the border and the cancellation of the visa program for Mexico pose a danger to public safety here. Over 400 Mexican cartel members have entered Canada to expand their turf and criminal activity. Can the minister tell us what he's done to address this situation?
Minister of Public Safety. Speaker, I'm rather surprised that the honourable gentleman continues to use statistics that have been totally discredited. In fact, he asked this question in the Standing Committee yesterday, and I indicated to him that according to the records of the CBSA, the number of Mexicans that have been connected or linked to the alleged cartels is not 400. It is, in fact, 3. Not 300, Mr. Speaker, 3. And they are among those who have been deported from Canada.
Order.
Order. Alors.
Order.
Alors. L'honorable.
The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleagues for not shouting. It's disrespectful of this place. The minister said 3, not 400 Mexican cartel members. Great if that's true. But can the minister tell us where they are? Have they been deported to Mexico?
Mr. Speaker, in all the hubbub of the House, I think the honourable gentleman missed the last part of my previous answer. I indicated that those 3, including another 27 that had criminal issues, have all been deported from Canada.
The honourable member for order. Okay, that's enough. The honourable member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, this week we learned that the Liberal government offered access into Canada as a reward for many people who sued the government based on the flawed and terribly managed family reunification program. I don't think there's anyone in this place that would say that access into our country is something that should be frittered away as a result of a lawsuit. This action was described by somebody as likening Canada to a third world country.
Wow.
Is the government expecting further lawsuits on this issue?
Good question.
Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Let me correct the record in terms of their record with respect to the parent-grandparent program. A backlog of 167,000 cases, 6 to 8 year wait times to sponsor loved ones.
Unacceptable.
They mismanaged the program so badly that it went off the rails for 2 years, Mr. Speaker. We have eliminated the backlog. We've reduced the wait times to under 2 years. And so they don't forget, Mr. Speaker, this is exactly what they said about this program. A party that now pretends to care about family reunification.
The honourable member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
Under the former Conservative government, we admitted an average of 20,370 people. Under this Liberal government, it was 18,768 in the family reunification program. You know, I'm really tired of this minister abdicating his responsibility to manage our border. He cannot allow people to skip the line at Roxham Road, give out access to our country through settlements and court cases while people who are legally trying to enter this country have to wait. When are they going to stop bringing disorder and unfairness to Canada's immigration system?
Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Speaker, this is what the Conservative Party recently said about the parent and grandparent program. Okay. Quote, this is the party that describes this program. Quote, they describe this program as a burden on the federal government in terms of support as well as a drain on provinces. Whoa. So the party that pretends to care about family reunification is at the same time trying to describe parents and grandparents as a drain on Canada and as a drain on provinces. We are the party that cares about family reunification, not the Conservative Party of Canada. Hear, hear.
Lord.
Order.
L'honorable.
The honourable member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, the government still has no plan to offset labour shortages in rural areas like mine, despite the disastrous consequences for many businesses. Everyone agrees immigration is one solution, but the process is cumbersome and the wait too long. I asked the Immigration Minister to open an office in Saint-Hyacinthe to support small and medium-sized businesses in our agri-food research park. Unfortunately, nothing's been done. Why is the Minister abandoning rural residents like mine? The Honourable Minister.
Aware of the increased volume of labour market impact assessment applications, due to the fact that we have the lowest unemployment rate ever since we've started measuring, we have a new problem, and that is that it's hard to find labour in all different sectors, including in the agricultural sector. So my department is trying to deal with the 40% surge in applications this year. We've dedicated more money and more resources, and we're also looking at the way that we're processing LMIAs to find more efficient ways to get employers the workers they need. Thank you very much.
The honourable member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-les-Basques. 13 of the 39 municipalities in my riding have little to no cell coverage. While big cities will soon have 5G, many regions are still fighting for 3G. 2 weeks ago, I asked why the Liberals were treating people in regions like second-class citizens. You know what the minister said? That telecoms would be investing more thanks to the accelerated capital cost allowance. But there's no guarantee that will prompt them to invest regionally. More likely, they'll invest more in 5G for the big cities. The minister is supposedly responsible for rural economic development. Could she wake up and get down to work for our regions? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we know all Canadians need access to broadband as well as mobile networks, and to participate in the digital world is also for safety. That's why our fall economic statement did incentivize businesses to expand networks to rural areas. We're also making mobile projects eligible under the CRTC broadband funding, and in Budget 2019, we announced our commitment to make sure we have 100% access to high-speed broadband for all Canadians. Mr. Speaker, we have a plan and it's working. Thank you very much.
Honourable member for Kamloops Thompson Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, Alberta cancelled the carbon tax and gas prices have fallen across the province. The same thing can't be said for rural British Columbia. Yesterday, Canfor in Vavenby laid off 178 workers. Wow. There's no employment, but the Prime Minister is happy to have them pay extra for gas because that's exactly what he wants. When will the Prime Minister stop punishing rural Canadians and take real steps to address the high price of gas?
The Honourable Minister of Environment.
Mr. Speaker, let's be clear what Premier Kenney said. He said that climate change is the flavor of the month. Flavor of the month. This is actually an existential threat. If you look at what's happening in Alberta right now, you have forest fires that are starting even earlier. Another fact, it was found that Doug Ford's climate plan costs twice as much to do less. Twice as much money for taxpayers. Taking action on climate change is something we need to do. You can do it in a way that makes life affordable and creates good jobs and ensures we don't leave the biggest debt to them for future generations in action on climate change.
Order.
I ask colleagues to show a little respect for each other. I'm sure they want the same shown to them. The
Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, this government is out of touch. Some of the most credible organizations, like the Environment Commissioner and the UN, have confirmed that Canada will not meet its targets under the Paris Agreement. I asked the Environment Minister at committee on April 29th whether her government had a plan, whether they would be hitting the targets, and you know what she said? Yes. What a lack of honesty and transparency. This Liberal government should come clean. When are they going to tell Canadians that with the Liberals in office, Canada will not be hitting its Paris targets? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canadians want to know whether the Conservative Party will support our motion on the climate emergency. It's simple. Climate change is real. It's an emergency, and we have to hit our Paris targets. So the question is simple. Are you going to join with everyone else and support that motion? Order. I have no problem understanding or hearing the question, but the member should listen to the answer whether he likes it or not. It's just a matter of respect for this place.
Well, the Liberals continue to pretend that they're going to meet their Paris targets, yet the evidence is overwhelming. Every single credible source, including that minister's own department, says that the targets will not be met. Yet every day the minister gets up in this House and repeats loudly, and sometimes very loudly, something she knows to be patently false, in the hope that Canadians will actually totally believe it.
Totally.
When will the minister admit that the Liberals will not meet Canada's Paris target?
Order. The Honourable Member for Durham will come to order. The Honourable Minister of Environment.
Mr. Speaker, I don't have to repeat I don't have to repeat talking points. I'm just going to say the truth. The truth is we've got a climate emergency, that we need to take action in climate change, and inaction costs us even more. We just found out that Doug Ford's climate plan is actually costing twice as much as our federal climate plan. So taxpayers are paying more to do less. We need to take action on climate change. Why won't the Conservative Party recognize that the environment and the economy go hand in hand, that we need to take action, and it's the future for our kids?
The Honourable Member for Toronto Danforth.
Mr. Speaker, the dream of home ownership seems increasingly unrealistic for the middle class in my riding of Toronto Danforth.
Trying to save for what will likely be the largest investment of their lives, we continue to see people who are failing to pay their fair share.
Can the Minister of National Revenue give us an update on any progress in the battle against tax evasion and avoidance in the housing market?
L'évitement fiscal dans les marchés immobiliers.
The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague from Toronto Danforth for her interest in this matter of great importance to people in her riding. Our government understands how important it is for the real estate market to be fair to all Canadians. That's why CRA has beefed up its audits of transactions in BC and Ontario.
CRA auditors reviewed almost 2,005 in Ontario and British Columbia and identified over $1 billion in additional taxes, resulting in over 100 in penalties. Je vous le confirme, Monsieur le Président.
Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
It's easier for small businesses in my province to sell goods all over the world than it is to other provinces. Due to the Prime Minister's failure to lead, there is still no free trade within our country. Now, this is an absolutely absurd situation. Provinces are starting to step up, but this Liberal government would rather defend their protectionist status quo. Will this government do what Canadians are demanding and stand with Premiers Kenny, Moe, and Pallister for free trade in this great country, Mr. Speaker?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
know that internal trade in this country needs to be freer. This is a very important issue. The IMF came out recently when they were looking at Canada and identified the fact that we could actually increase our GNP if we actually had freer trade across the country. That's why we're working towards this goal. We know that most of these barriers are at a provincial level, so I'm encouraged to see provincial leaders taking action on this. The federal government has taken significant action. In our most recent budget, we took away all federal constraints, for example, to moving alcohol across our country. Now we need to work together with the provinces to get this done.
Order. The honourable member for Windsor-Tecumseh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, dozens of workers with developmental disabilities were fired from their jobs after this Liberal government shut down the National Archives program that employs them. Liberals have promised to find them meaningful work within government, but nothing has been done. When the Prime Minister was asked about the fate of these workers, he gave empty talking points. And these workers deserve better, and they want to know, will the Liberals commit today to replace those jobs they took away?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement.
Mr. Speaker, on the eve of our third annual National Accessibility Week, and of course with C81 having gone through this House last week, I can tell you and assure every Canadian that we will find jobs for these workers. And in fact, I am sure we are showing them the dignity of giving them meaningful work that they can contribute to government operations. I've been working with the organization. No one will be without a job, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Don Valley North.
Mr. Speaker, the global transition to a low-carbon economy is among the great challenges and opportunities of our lifetime. Our government has been a leader in the transition to a clean energy future. But to succeed, we must engage expertise from around the world. Can the Minister update this House on how Canada is showing clear leadership, bringing together international partners from government and industry to solve one of the most important global issues of our time?
Excellent. Beautiful. Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the member from Don Valley North for his question and for his hard work. Last week, Canada hosted the Clean Energy Ministerial and Minister Innovation. We brought together over 25 countries to help build a more sustainable energy future that supports workers and communities and create middle-class jobs. We highlighted the leadership of women, Indigenous peoples, young Canadians in Canada's energy sector, and highlighted why Canada is the place to invest.
Wow, that's excellent. That's
right.
The honourable member for Mégantic-L'Érable.
All talk and no action when it comes to the crisis with China. But today we've learned the crisis with China is about to get worse. The Chinese government has now set its sight on our livestock industry. And the Canadian Meat Council is telling producers that they can't count on the Canadian embassy to defend their interests in China. When will the Prime Minister realize that his inaction is devastating Canadian farmers and ranchers?
The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I assure you that we're working very closely with all our farmers in all sectors and have been for months. We're monitoring the situation closely, and our priority is to reopen markets in China, starting with canola. We have a task force working very hard on this, and we are following their recommendations. Yesterday, I confirmed that the timetable for the new advanced payments program was being moved up, but we are working closely with our farmers. The honourable member for La Pointe de l'Île. Mr. Speaker, the Canadian family reunification system is absurd. Ottawa closed the immigration service at its embassy in Cuba without warning and without any explanation. People sponsored by their family in Quebec have to go to other countries for medical tests, then go back to Cuba, and then come to Quebec, all at a cost of thousands of dollars. When's the government going to fix this so that Quebec families and Canadian families can live together? The Honourable Minister of Immigration. Mr. Speaker, Canada and Cuba have enjoyed a special relationship for a long time. Immigration plays an important role in solidifying these links between the peoples of our two countries.
Unique responsibility to protect the health and safety of all our employees. Cuban nationals seeking to apply for travel documents to Canada will continue to have access to services online, and Canadian and permanent residents will continue to be able to submit documents directly to our embassy in Cuba.
The Honourable Member for La Pointe de l'Île. Mr. Speaker, there are kids currently stuck in Cuba without their family because this government cut consular services. Minors cannot be expected to have the wherewithal to get a visa for Mexico, pay to get there, get a medical test, and gather all the paperwork in a foreign country. The families are the ones who are suffering. Could somebody tell us when services are going to be restored? What's the government waiting for? The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, 3 weeks ago I was in Havana and I spoke to our diplomats at our embassy. I thanked them for their excellent work, and I'd like to reassure all Canadians that the health and welfare of our diplomats and their families must be and are our main concern.
Lady Smith.
Mr. Speaker, my constituents in Nanaimo, Lady Smith, are having an increasingly difficult time paying the rising costs of pharmaceutical drugs. It is clear that it is beyond time to implement a universal pharmacare program. The new NAFTA program includes provisions that extend patents on drugs from 8 years to 10 years and will keep the costs of drugs high for consumers longer. What is the government prepared to do to keep pharmaceuticals affordable for those that need them and stop the excessive profiteering of Big Pharma?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the honourable member for his question. Our government believes that no Canadian should have to choose between paying for prescriptions and putting food on the table. That's why we're taking bold steps to help Canadians save billions on drugs, including joining the Pan-Canadian Pharmaceutical Alliance, proposing major reforms to regulations, laying the foundation for national pharmacare in Budget 2019, and devoting over $1 billion to high-cost drugs for rare diseases. We will not rest until all Canadians can get and afford the medications that they need.
No. L'honorable député de Trois-Rivières.
The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières is rising on a point of order. Mr. Speaker, I certainly hope that you will get the unanimous consent of this House for the following motion. That in the opinion of the House, the government should A, recognize the contribution of caregivers to the well-being of seniors, the sick, and the mobility impaired, and the crucial role they play in a context of an aging population. B, promote a World Day of Caregivers at the United Nations General Assembly. Does the honourable member have unanimous consent in order to move the motion?
No, il n'y a pas de...
No, there is no unanimous consent.
No, encore. Est-ce qu'il y a...
Okay, once again, is there unanimous consent?
Okay, oui.
Very well, yes. The House has heard the terms of the motion.
Alors.
Order.
La deuxième portion.
There's a second part. The House has heard the terms of the motion. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion?
Adopt.
Carried.